in our society, in pretty much every society, but especially in our society, first of all, we don't understand addictions, and second, we don't know how to deal with it. We have a lot of judgment around addictions. So what exactly are addictions? What kind of addictions am I talking about? First of all, addiction is a behavior that a person indulges in even when sometimes they know and understand that this is not a behavior that is beneficial for them and actually could be harmful to them. They understand it, yet they cannot seem to control that behavior. It's very compulsive. Now, what kinds of addictions are there? There are many kinds of addictions. Because of the way society is these days, we all have some kind of addiction today. During the pandemic, I was addicted to Netflix for like 12, 16, 17 hours a day. Not a very healthy addiction, but I had it. Addictions are coping mechanisms. So I was coping with boredom, couldn't get out of the house. So, that became an addiction and became a repetitive behavior. So thank God I was able to overcome it. But there are other kinds of addictions. Of course, there's drug abuse, there's substance abuse, that's addiction. There's alcohol addiction. These are the common addictions that people understand. But then there are behavioral addictions such as sexual addiction. Some people are addicted to new love. They just want those chemicals that are released in the beginning of a new romance, that they just last during that first phase of the relationship, and then they break up and they move on to someone else. So they're addicted to that pattern. Some people are addicted to food. Some people are addicted to negativity. Negative thinking is a very serious addiction as well, because of the chemicals that the brain produces at that time. The body becomes addicted, and then it craves drama and negativity, and so they end up creating drama in their life all the time. Of course, spiritual growth is an addiction as well, which is a good addiction to have. So really, there are many, many types of addictions. Any kind of repetitive behavior that you can't stop is an addiction. Now, what I really want you to understand, that addiction, the harmful addictions, are always about pain. The person who is addicted is trying to cope or manage some kind of pain, a trauma that they have had in the past, and in order to deal with that pain, they have developed an addictive pattern. So it's so important to have compassion for a person who is trying to deal with an addiction. They deserve our compassion, because behind addiction is pain. Instead of compassion, what do we give them? We give them judgment. And we ask them, why can't you change this? Why can't you do this? You're hurting so many people. They understand that. They a lot of times know that, and that actually adds more to the pain that they're already trying to deal with. And I understand that it's very painful for the people that are connected with that kind of a person as well. But if we were to see this as an issue of mental health, we would treat it in a very different manner. People understand that substance abuse is an addiction, but somehow behavioral addiction, people don't tend to understand that a lot of times people have addictions like sexual addictions or addiction to affairs and that kind of stuff. When I deal with those people in my sessions, I try to get to the pain. What is it that you're not facing, because of which you now go into this pattern of constantly trying to avoid this pain, trying to run away from the pain? We have to address that exact issue. So for example, a person that I dealt with recently who was addicted to having affairs. And what we discovered was that from his childhood, there was lack of validation from his mother. And he, in order to receive that validation, he had affairs, because in the beginning of an affair, he could be the best self that he could be, and he got a lot of validation. As soon as any relationship became a little bit serious, where it was getting intimate, he would get very uncomfortable. And by intimacy, I mean people that are, they're getting close to you emotionally. He would get very uncomfortable, and he would leave that relationship and get into the next one. And then he would have that validation again. So the real pain was lack of validation. And unless he addressed that, he would continue with the affairs no matter what. Even if he got married, I predicted it for him, you would get into this pattern, because ultimately with your wife, as soon as you feel there is lack of validation or you're failing in something, your pattern for coping is going to be an affair. So how do we heal that particular pain, this lack of validation? It comes from healing self. The wounds are inside the person. They can go into different relationships, they can leave, if somebody has, they can leave town, they can get divorced, they can do all kinds of things, but they're going to carry the pattern because they have the baggage in themselves, and they will continue to repeat it. So the main trauma has to be healed. You can get therapy for that. There are a lot of amazing therapies that are being developed right now for exactly this problem. Dealing with addictions, are very compassionate therapies that are being developed, where therapists have made groundbreaking discoveries, and it's all about understanding that the person who is addicted deserves compassion, and they need to have some trauma healing so that that pattern is automatically going to dissolve.